Shelley Fab's song peaked at #1 in America in 1962. She was on a waiting list to pass away by 1999. She was discovered collapsed in a pool of blood by the doctors. A condition that had been quietly killing her for years was causing her liver to fail. At one point after receiving a liver transplant, She struggled to remain awake and weighed 90 pounds. She waited for an organ that might never arrive for 22 months. Of those on the list, half do not make it. The cute TV girl was now a medical miracle. The cost of childhood celebrity became evident in her later years. In the closing months of World War II, Shelley Fabares was born in Santa Monica, California, on January 19, 1944, to a ballerina mother who still had aspirations of becoming a movie star. James, her father, was a real estate agent. Despite the difficult circumstances, Shell's mother was adamant about introducing her daughter to the entertainment industry. Shell began exploring movie sets when she was only 2 years old. She would imitate the actions of actors she observed. The dream started at that point. She received an early dose of the experimental vaccine in 1954, at a frightening moment when polio was sweeping the United States. Due to stress brought on by her husband's absence during the war, her mother almost lost her during her pregnancy. However, Shelley's survival led her family to feel she was destined for greatness. While watching Shelley, her aunt Nanette Fabares, who was already a working actress, would tell her stories about being famous. She remembered those stories. In 1947, Shelley's parents separated when she was just 3 years old. The split wasn't amicable. There were allegations of infidelity and disputes about money. Although she was granted custody, her mother only received $50 a month, or around $700 in today's currency. They were forced to relocate throughout Los Angeles to tiny apartments. Shelley frequently recalled sobbing herself to sleep and hiding beneath mattresses during arguments. Nanette provided financial support, while Elsa, her mother, worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. For the bandwagon, Nanette even took Shell to a movie set in 1953. Shell's father had vanished and established a new family by 1955. He never really returned to her life. She lived with that kind of abandonment for years. Shell started modeling in 1948 at the age of 4. She only made $5 every shoot posing for Sears catalogs. Although it wasn't much, every dollar made a difference. By 1952, her family was living in 7 different apartments. They frequently ate a single can of soup for dinner. Shelley put a lot of effort into her work, but her clothes were secondhand. She had already done 15 modeling gigs by the time she was 6 years old. She was once overworked by a photographer in 1950, and her mother pulled her out to keep her safe. They nearly faced eviction in 1951. To keep them afloat, Nanette handed them $200. Shelley began going to acting auditions that same year. Not long later, she got her big break. From 1949 to 1955, she attended North Hollywood's Grant Elementary School. Children teased her since she had a small lisp from an accident as a child. She was referred to as Stutter Shelley. She was shoved so violently by a bully in 1952 that she shattered her arm. After school, Shelley began taking theatrical classes. She was urged to perform by her aunt. In 1954, she performed a dramatic monologue and won a school talent event. For the first time, she felt strong in that moment. However, the harassment persisted. Due of the divorce, other children murmured that her family was peculiar. Shelley dreamed of escaping into a new world acting because of her solitude. She received her first film job by 1956. Shell's home life was still challenging behind the scenes. Since the 1940s, her mother had battled depression. It worsened after the 1947 divorce. When her mother would lose her temper, Shelley would occasionally hide. Elsa had to be admitted to the hospital in 1950 after breaking crockery. Following a suicide attempt, Shelley located her mother in 1952. Nanette kept it a secret from Shell's younger siblings as well as from everyone else. That horror followed Shelley into adulthood. Elsa was later given an Alzheimer's diagnosis in 1988. In 1990, Shelley was forced to make the difficult choice to place her mother in a care facility. Then Elsa's name was completely forgotten. A lifetime of mental health issues was inherited by the family. When Shelley first debuted on television, she was 10 years old in 1954. In a Loretta Young Show episode, she portrayed Marie Schumann. Shelley, who was new to acting, performed a sequence in which she cried in a single take, leaving everyone on set in awe. She even received a necklace as a present from Loretta Young. Before receiving that position, Shelley had previously been turned down 20 times. The days were exhausting and long. She frequently worked double the 4 hours that children were supposed to labor. She still enjoyed the sensation of being on camera, though. She starred alongside Rosalind Russell and her Aunt Nanette in the 1955 movie The Girl Rush when she was 11 years old. It was shot during a heat wave in Las Vegas. The temperature exceeded 100 degrees. Dehydration caused Shelley to faint once. She completed a challenging tap number alongside experts despite having no dance instruction. Despite the film earning over $1 million, she only received $100 for the entire job. She also appeared in series like Annie Oakley and Captain Midnight that year. However, she recalled being made fun of for being so short, 410 at the time, which made her feel self-conscious. At the age of 14, she made her debut in 1958. She co-starred with Annette Funicello in the Disney series Annette. In one scene, she unintentionally slapped Annette in real life while portraying a snobbish rival. Fined her $50, but Disney removed it. 10 million people watched the show every week, demonstrating its enormous popularity. Shelley rose to fame as a teenager. In real life, she became close to Annette. They only received 3 hours of instruction a day from tutors, and the days were long, up to 16 hours. Filming one episode brought back unpleasant memories of bullying Shelley had experienced at school. Shelley battled to juggle employment and education between 1954 and 1958. Producers frequently kept her on set for up to 10 hours each day, even though she attended Immaculate Heart High School for only a few hours. She missed 45 school days in 1957 alone. Despite having a high IQ, she received subpar tutoring and graduated with mediocre grades. She was rejected from more than 100 roles. She once lost a part in 1956 because she was too tall, 5 feet 4 inches. She experienced a brief eating disorder and problems with body image as a result of that rejection. A filmmaker made offensive remarks to her when she was 13, but Nanette intervened and shielded her. She signed a 7-year, $10,000 per year contract with Columbia Pictures in 1959, when she was just 15 years old, but it allowed her little authority. She put in a lot of labor on the movie Never Say Goodbye starring Rock Hudson, including 18-hour days. She was given acting books and treated with kindness by him, who portrayed her father, although she only received $300 for 20 days of labor. The film earned more than $1.6 million. She had never realized how unjust the company might be before. When she appeared as Mary Stone on The Donna Reed Show in 1958, everything changed once more. She filmed about 163 episodes throughout her tenure on the show, which ended in 1963. Up to 20 million people watched the show every week, demonstrating its popularity. Although Shelley was modest and reserved in real life, she portrayed the ideal daughter on television. She missed out on typical adolescent life because of the long workdays, which frequently lasted 12 hours. She recorded the song Johnny Angel in 1962, and it sold over 1 million copies and peaked at number 1. In October 1959, one particular occurrence generated a lot of discussion. Her character had to make difficult decisions while watching a toddler. More than 500 parents protested to the network, with some believing it suggested an adolescent pregnancy. Even the studio was visited by protesters. It taught her how quickly things might become viral in the media, Shelley, who was only 16 at the time, said later. Off-screen, Shelley had a close friendship with her co-star Paul Peterson, who portrayed her brother. In between scenes, she even tutored him. Although they never visited a real campus, they both received their diplomas from University School, a studio school, in 1962. They remained pals for decades. However, one of the producers screamed at them on the set over a broken prop on July 15, 1960. Shelley was reminded that day just how much pressure, especially for teenagers, can be. At the age of 18, Shelley Fabares' life took an unexpected turn. Her song Johnny Angel, which she released in February 1962, became an immediate hit. She once acknowledged that she wasn't very good at singing, but the show will return next season. Paul and you will each perform a song. By April 7, the song was still at the top of the Billboard Hot 100, where it remained for 2 weeks. They sold more than 1 million copies. When Shelley was still performing on the Donna Reed Show in late 1961, she recorded it. Fans adored it when she even lip-synced the song during one of the episodes. Although several of the top artists in the industry, like Glenn Campbell on guitar and Carol Kaye on bass, assisted her behind the scenes, nobody anticipated it being a teen hit. Additionally, the song peaked at number 41 in the UK and number 1 in Canada. Even Shell was amazed at how famous it made her. Her follow-up, Johnny Loves Me, was released later that year. The story went on, this time with Johnny's love for the girl. Although it didn't achieve the same success as the first one, the song nonetheless peaked at number 21 on the US charts. The pressure began to wear Shelley down as she continued to record songs and balance her TV career. Despite the fatigue in her voice, she persisted. She released Simply Called Shelley, her debut full album, in the same year. It included her hit song as well as additional songs she recorded late at night when it was released in June 1962. She even sang a duet with Paul Peterson, her co-star. Unusually for a teenage idol, some of the songs have a jazzy vibe. She gave it everything she had, despite her insecurity about her voice. It wasn't just music, though, in 1962. By fabricating a romance between her and pop artist Fabian Fort, her record label attempted to increase her notoriety. To keep her in the news, they organized picture shoots and staged dates. It never pleased Shelley. Even as a teenager, she was already experiencing the pressures of celebrity. She started to feel the personal effects of all the stories and gossip. She felt taken advantage of by the entire situation, and it didn't help that Fabian had also been built up in a similar manner. Everything got to be too much. Her passion for music was beginning to wane by the end of 1962, and offers from movies began to entice her in a different direction. Everything had altered by 1963. Shell's songs weren't charting as well as they once did, and the Beatles were taking over. Ronnie Call Me When You Get a Chance, one of her final well-known hits, only reached number 16 in Canada. Things were spooky during a Hollywood Bowl concert that summer. Shelley almost was crushed as thousands of yelling fans rushed the stage. The crowd was too large for security to manage. She had to leave the stage quickly. It was one of those incidents that demonstrated the perils of teenage celebrity. Her career as a musician ended with that performance. She made the decision to resume her acting career. She played a girl attempting to persuade a surfer to return to school in the 1964 beach film Ride the Wild Surf. Some of the waves were as high as 30 feet when they recorded it in Hawaii. The movie contained unexpected events behind the scenes, despite its happy exterior. Later reviewers saw a peculiar vibe in some of the surfers' interactions. For the part, Shelley had to tint her hair blonde, and she almost suffered an injury while filming in a broken wave tank. Shelley and Elvis Presley co-starred in Girl Happy in 1965. Valerie, a college student enmeshed in a seaside romance, was the character she portrayed. The film earned almost $3 million when it was released in April. Some of their scenes were so heated that people started speculating about a potential real-life romance between her and Elvis. Fans continued to conjecture even after Shelley's 1964 wedding to music producer Lou Adler. Although Shell later said that Elvis was kind and friendly, the rumors persisted. She starred in Hold On with Herman's Hermits the next year, in 1966. Her costume tore during a fast-paced dance sequence. The incident was humiliating and resulted in derogatory remarks regarding her physique. She had to talk about the pressure women in Hollywood faced in private since it caused her great pain. She also made another appearance with Elvis in Spin Out that year. They collaborated on their third movie, Clam, in 1967. After first pursuing wealthy men, Shelley's character found true love. For the part, she had to learn go-go dancing, which required 12 hours of practice. Shelley claimed that although there were moments when the set was chaotic due to fans breaking in and snapping unapproved pictures, Elvis always made an effort to keep her safe. She played a far more dramatic part in A Time to Sing in 1968. It forced her to delve deeply into her emotions and revealed a darker side of celebrity. During filming, she even had anxiety attacks and sought treatment from a therapist. Despite its lackluster box office performance, the film demonstrated her ability to play tragic roles. Shell's marriage to Lou Adler terminated the same year. Although they had been apart since 1966, they didn't formally file for divorce until December 1980. Later, Shelley said that she was distraught by reports that Adler had cheated on her with other well-known women. The emotional toll remained with her, and it occurred when her career was still flourishing. She hardly ever discussed the fact that she was childless. Some thought that health problems might have contributed. On December 31, 1984, she wed actor Mike Frell following her divorce. In every way, he became her companion. Mike was with Shelley when she suffered a major accident in 1994, breaking her ribs after falling through the floor of her house that was still under construction. Even worse was revealed by that accident. By 1999, Shelley's liver was weakening and tests revealed she had autoimmune hepatitis. She waited for a liver transplant for 22 months and almost died from internal hemorrhage. Finally, on October 23, 2000, she got one. Throughout it all, Mike took care of her and kept her alive. Throughout this period, Shelley continued to work. She played Christine Armstrong in the popular television series Coach from 1989 until 1997. She received 2 Emmy nods for the part, which rewarded her with a strong and intelligent character. Her character finds out she is unable to have children in a heartbreaking 1993 episode. Filming the sequence was challenging for Shelley because it reflected her own life. She eventually transitioned into voice acting. She provided the voice of Superman's adopted mother, Martha Kent, in the animated series from 1996 to 2000. Her condition made on-screen work too challenging at the time, yet it was a small but impactful role. She claimed that being able to continue acting while she was recuperating was made possible by voice work. In 2006, she made a final appearance in the animated movie Superman Brainiac Attacks. Her last acting performance was that one. She was 62. She then gave up performing to concentrate on producing and health advocacy. Through it all, she remained married to Mike Frell. They had also been together for 41 years by 2025. He was her haven, Shelley claimed, the one who kept her alive when all else seemed hopeless. She never had children of her own, but after losing her mother in 1992, she became a stepmother to Mike's children and dedicated her life to spreading awareness about Alzheimer's and organ donation. Shelley Fabares was experiencing what should have been a typical day at home in 1994 as work was underway. The floor beneath her, however, gave way. With such power that she cracked every rib on her left side of her body, she tumbled through splintered floor joists. She was severely injured and hardly able to move when she was taken to the hospital. During her recuperation, however, something even more concerning was discovered. Her liver enzymes were found to be abnormally elevated by the doctors. Nobody initially understood why. Her liver values remained off the charts even after they treated her ribs. For years, Shelley, who was still working on the show Coach at the age of 50, lived in silence with this mystery. She took medicine to help, but it never really resolved the issue. She broke more than just her ribs in that tumble. It revealed a hidden threat that was developing within her. And it didn't get any worse. The nightmare came true at the beginning of 1999. Following a horrifying esophageal bleed that resulted in severe internal hemorrhage, Shelley passed out. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center received her in a hurry. At last, the doctors discovered what had been wrong all along. Autoimmune hepatitis was Shelley's condition. Her liver had been under attack from her own immune system for years. Her liver was weakening now. When she heard the words that altered her life, she was 55 years old. Without a liver transplant, she would perish. There was nothing else to do. She was informed by her doctors, particularly Dr. John Verling, that she could die suddenly from another hemorrhage. That horrific moment had a direct connection to the 1994 warning indicators. Shelley claimed she was too weak to function and constantly felt very ill. Given that more than half of those on the transplant list do not live long enough to receive a new organ, she was added to the list in April 1999. The clock had begun to run out. Shelley waited and waited as the days stretched into months. 22 months went by between April 1999 and October 2000. She hardly had the strength to move at the time. She felt decades older than her actual age of 56. Her body just couldn't remain up, so she spent much of her time sleeping. She occasionally woke up so thirsty that she was unable to walk to the kitchen to get water. She always felt as though she was using borrowed time. She was constantly reminded by her doctors of the dangers of another bleed. She was constantly afraid. Stress was increased even by her pager. She thought an organ could be available after receiving false alarms from incorrect numbers, but her hope was dashed once more. Although she and her spouse, actor Mike Farrell, made an effort to remain composed, the emotional stress was intolerable on the inside. They were both aware of the number of people who pass away before receiving a transplant. The days were long and filled with uncertainty, worry, and fatigue. Finally, on October 23, 2000, the call arrived. There was a liver. They hurried Shelley into surgery. She almost died, but the transplant saved her life. Serious illnesses assaulted her body immediately following the procedure. Along with other potentially fatal consequences, she might have been rejected by the new liver. The physicians kept an eye out for any indication of failure. She had a weakened immune system. Her body was weak and exhausted. She was in danger even though she had survived the surgery. Mike was there for her in every way. Recovery consumed everything she had left after the illnesses nearly killed her again when she was eating, walking, and bathing. She was different, but she had survived. The impact of the encounter would last a lifetime. Shelley has previously had another severe heartbreak in 1992. Elsa, her mother, fought Alzheimer's for 9 years before succumbing to the disease. Elsa had once vowed that she would never endure such a disease. However, she had forgotten that pledge when the time arrived. After her mother passed away, Shelley discovered those words inscribed among her belongings. As a result of witnessing Elsa's gradual decline, Shelley became an advocate. Before her mother's passing, in 1988, she had already been appointed the Alzheimer's Association's national spokesman. From the late 1980s to the early 1990s, she addressed Congress 4 times. She continued to advocate for caregivers and families like hers, helped fund millions for research, and established an Alzheimer's Center at CSU Northridge in 2000. Shelley frequently acknowledged that she was afraid of contracting the illness herself. However, she clung to the hope that a remedy was on the horizon. She had a feeling of purpose and something to cling to during her grief because of that work. Shelley's documentary, Giving Care, Taking Care, was released in 1992, the same year her mother passed away. It illustrated the heartbreaking reality of looking after an Alzheimer's patient. It featured true accounts of families, including her own, coping with the sickness. As she talked about her mother's decline, she broke down in tears on camera. In the movie, other caregivers talked about their everyday challenges, such as installing safety locks, deciding between job and care, and feeling powerless. Despite her best efforts, Shelley acknowledged that it was never enough. The movie demonstrated how Alzheimer's completely upends everything. The parents were children. Everything was different. Thousands of people learned they weren't alone thanks to the documentary. And it brought much-needed awareness to the nation. In the years following her transplant in 2000, Shelley remained vocal. Rather, she advocated for more organ donation by sharing her story. She shared with others how near death she had been. One organ donor might save or improve 50 lives, she reminded audiences when she spoke at gatherings. She described the agonies of waiting, feeling weak all the time, and never knowing if she would make it through the night. Moreover, half of the people on those lists don't make it, she said. At medical conferences, she was accompanied by her spouse. She never ceased praising her donor, whom she referred to as a blessing. 3 years following her operation, in 2003, she continued to advocate for others and work to better their lives. Her efforts to support those unable to advocate for themselves merged with her work on Alzheimer's and organ donation. Everyone was taken aback by Shelley's new appearance in the 2020s. Her hair was dyed a vivid pink and chopped in a spiky, punk-inspired style. Fans accustomed to viewing her as the nice girl from the Donna Reed program were taken aback by her audacious and loud behavior. However, there was significance to this style. It served as a reminder that she had lived. At the age of 79, she proudly donned the pink shades that she had copyrighted in 1999. She was spotted entering Q&A sessions with her spouse while occasionally sporting a Ziggy Stardust sweater. Despite her 2006 acting retirement, she remained true to herself. The honesty, attitude, and hair all conveyed a resilient story. She had confronted death and emerged more resilient. Shelley will be 81 in 2025. She and her husband of almost 40 years, Mike, reside in a quiet neighborhood of Los Angeles. Their wedding took place on June 9, 1984. And they remained together despite all of Hollywood's turmoil. They were spotted strolling hand in hand at a Burbank park on July 26, 2025. Shelley flashed a peace sign and her blonde hair was streaked with pink. It was a unique scene for the cameras, and Mike sported a hat that read, "Make America Normal Again." Despite her fragile appearance, Shelley's spirit was unwavering. Fans were reminded of everything she had experienced throughout that walk. She continued to walk despite the fall, the sickness, the transplant, the infections, the advocacy, and the heartache. However, a year ago, a horrific incident occurred once more. Shelley experienced a mild stroke towards the end of 2024. She was 80 years old. It was a startling event that left me feeling weak and confused. She initially kept silent after being sent to a private clinic, but in 2025, information about the incident surfaced on YouTube and IMDb. Fortunately, she recovered completely by the beginning of 2025.